Hello and welcome back to another episode. Now, this morning I feel compelled to try and support a little-known TV show that you may not have come across, but I think deserves more attention. And it's not great yet, but it can be. I think it's got something, and if we all support it, I'm sure it'll. So I'm talking nonsense, obviously. Stranger Things is a TV show that needs no introduction from me. It's a TV phenomenon. Everyone I know has been talking about it. People who never normally talk to me about TV have been mentioning the fact that I need to watch Stranger Things. My wife's work colleagues have been saying to her, "Oh, watch Stranger Things," and it's online. It's everywhere. It's almost inescapable. And so last week we finally, pinched our noses, dived in, and watched the whole series. 8 episodes of magnificence. And today I just want to talk a little bit about why I love Stranger Things, why I'm looking forward to the next series, and hopefully without any spoilers really. This should be a spoiler-free video. I encourage you, if you haven't yet, to do the same. And frankly, I just want to encourage as well conversation below, because there'll be some of you out there who have seen this, and I want to hear what you think. So please do just, if you agree or if you want to expand on some elements, just comment down below. This TV show is superb. It's set in 1983 in a town called Hawkins, Indiana, and this sort of mundane, and it is quite a mundane kind of setting, is both its strength, but also it's a deceptive trap as well. Because lots of people who were suggesting that I should watch Stranger Things were sort of suggesting it because of other material. They were sort of saying to me, well, it's like E.T., it's like The Goonies, it's just like watching Stand By Me or Big and this kind of thing. And people were sort of talking about it as though that's the focus, that's the genre, is the kid. It's a kid's thing, kid's adventure. But that's not the point. A film like Stand By Me is very different from The Goonies in terms of, one's a coming-of-age story where they go to find a dead body. Another one is a pirate adventure with literally a pirate ship. The two aren't really comparable. But people sort of fall into the trap of feeling as though the relatability of the main characters as kids, but also as kids in the 80s, and also kids in the 80s in real control of their environment, as it were, really at home, that's the focus. And I think also actually Hollywood's fallen into that trap as well. So recently we've had films like Earth to Echo, or from the anointed successor to Spielberg himself, J.J. Abrams, in the shape of Super 8. People are trying to capture or recapture this lightning in a bottle by giving us that, and sort of mistaking that the kids essentially in the group for the thing that made it work. But actually what makes these things work, and I think the Duffer Brothers, the people behind Stranger Things, really understand this, is that yes, okay, we relate to, and this group of kids are people we want to hang around with, and we go on the adventure with, but it's about the fact that essentially they are like adults in their world, and we're on the adventure with them as peers. We're not sort of nostalgically looking back to them. The Goonies was made in the 80s. It wasn't an 80s movie. And so Stranger Things, yes, sure, it is an 80s genre piece, or rather 80s period piece, sorry, with lots of other 80s genres sort of thrown in. But the power of this is the fact that it is driven by characters who are charismatic, who are relatable, and also who you want to go on the adventure with. And speaking of which, the whole thing starts out, and it's no mistake, this whole thing starts out with a Dungeons & Dragons game being played in Mike's basement. We have 4 boys. We have Mike, Justin, Lucas, and Will. And the 4 boys have been playing D&D together for a long time. It's very quickly established that they have sort of little rules in their party about how they resolve disputes with each other. That they have a history of facing different monsters. They're always referring back to their adventures in a very real way, which D&D troops do. It feels like you've been on grand epic adventures together. And this whole thing starts out not only by letting us into their group, into their D&D party, but also actually by essentially saying, This 8-episode TV series is a Dungeons and Dragons adventure. This is essentially, you're going to start off with these boys, and we're going to go on this adventure together, and let's see where it takes us. And that's again part of the wonderful subtle beauty of Stranger Things, is that it's not a gimmick. What it is it's very openly inviting you into the party, into their group, and you go along with them. Justin in particular is one of my favourite characters in the TV show. He is, I know people like him. I wouldn't say that I am like him, because he's sort of like the glue that holds the group together. But he's got a heart of gold. He's so insightful. He's also a little bit greedy, which makes him, when it comes to, for example, finding some chocolate pudding at one point, which makes him adorable. And so he's fantastic. But I think probably the character I related to most, and I think you sort of meant to, is Mike. So essentially the protagonist, and sort of the leader of the group, I guess, sort of. And Mike, in particular, has an awful lot to do with how the series unfolds. Now, again, I'm not going to go into detail about this stuff because I don't want to spoil it. But what you should know from the show description and from the trailers and this kind of thing, is that one of those boys is kidnapped, and Will, the Will Byers, the youngest of his family and I think the youngest of the group, goes missing. And this is also actually when we get the next strength of the show come into play, and that is the fact that then we have the world of the adults. The world of the adults is pretty much mediated by two main characters. We have Joyce Byers, Will's mum, as played by Winona Ryder. A wonderful performance of a mother on the edge who will do anything to get her boy back, but also actually a mother in the 80s, a single parent essentially in the 80s, and the way that the community responds to her as well. It's very well portrayed. And the other, I suppose, key adult in this story is Jim Jim Hopper, as played by David Harbour. Jim Hopper is a policeman. and just as Winona Ryder's Joyce is a character that is relatable but also not a stereotype, Jim Hopper as a policeman is not a stereotype either. We first meet him and he's looking a bit rough, a bit worse for wear. So he could play. I sort of assumed actually initially he was going to be one of these sort of washed out policemen, but he's not. He's not washed out. He is a professional when he's on the job. But he's also not suddenly a badass either, and yet he has badass elements to his character. He is a believable man of principle who has a history, who has motivations, but also crucially has his role as the sheriff of the town upmost in his mind, and he really cares about the community that he's serving. And so again, that's something else which brings you in along. And then between those two layers we have the teenagers. We have essentially the older siblings of in particular Mike. Mike Wheeler has an older sister called Nancy Wheeler, and she is experiencing that sort of first flutter of rebellion. She's a grade A student who suddenly is discovering boys and this kind of thing, and again it's very familiar territory, but she also doesn't go down all of the familiar routes, and so yet again Stranger Things is playing with you all the way through. You have these three narratives that are very strong in terms of 80s culture, but also in other respects, in other sources, and I'll come back to that in a moment, but all the characters navigate their stories in ways which are both familiar and unexpected. In particular, Jonathan Byers, the older brother of Will, who's gone missing, he and his character is one which is very multi-toned, multifaceted, and actually he's probably the character who I related to most now as an adult. He's sort of seen as a bit of a weirdo by his friends in school. He's very insightful. His hobby is photography, and he's also, though, not perfect. He doesn't immediately believe, for example, what his mum's saying when she believes that Will he's not gone forever kind of thing. So the characterization is wonderful. But in addition to the setting and the characters, there's also the presentation of the drama. It's no mistake that Stranger Things, the logo, is a very carefully and beautifully designed thing. It sort of has like a neon sort of 80s feel to it, but it also looks like the font from a Stephen King novel, for example. And actually, all the way through this show, we have lots of not so subtle references to resources and material that have inspired this world. We have posters for John Carpenter's The Thing, the Evil Dead film, Dark Crystal on Mike's bedroom wall, for example. We have little books and titles of well-known writers and ghost stories and this kind of thing here and there show up, and all the way through there's a texture that's also as realistic and as homely as it feels. It also feels like it has been lifted, for example, from a Stephen King novel. So all the way through we're being subtly toyed with, and we both want to be there and we don't. We both recognise and also don't quite recognise the place where we are, and we also both recognise and don't quite recognise the characters who are being presented with. Now, I haven't mentioned a character called Elle yet. I won't say why she's called Elle, but she is incredibly important to this story, and Mike is really the character who has the most interaction with her. And we really get to know actually the two of them through their interaction with each other. Mike sort of comes out of his own shell a little bit, and well, so does Elle in many respects as well. Elle is a girl played beautifully by Millie Bobby Brown, and I suppose it's not. I can say without spoiling anything that she has come from a background that is very reminiscent of, say, E.T. You know, she has abilities and powers, and she's being chased down by the government, and she has found herself rolled up in this search for Will, who's gone missing, and this is where everything snowballs, and we quickly get a broader and more I suppose cinematic sense to the story as soon as she's involved. No, yes, okay, yeah. There's the spectacle of what she can do in terms of her powers, and there's one moment in particular where they're being chased through town by guys in white vans. This is just spectacular, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Both in its spectacle, but also in the way that it's achieved. It's not over the top. It's mysterious, stranger things, as it were. But also, we have through her the ability to see, I suppose, another side of the town, quite literally, and this is where we get more superb references and also very deliberate textures coming into the TV show that are very familiar to me, for example, as someone who's played Silent Hill. And again, I don't want to go into spoilers, but the fact that it, just as in Silent Hill, there are different aspects to the environment. In this TV show, the way that the town and the mystery of what's happened to Will unfolds is reminiscent of playing a Silent Hill game. You have the tension, you have quite literally the shifts in setting, but also as well you have the threat, and the threat is represented in particular by a monster. Again, I'm not going to go into spoilers, but the monster is magnificent. I'll leave it there. The monster in this piece is just superb. So, at every stage, everything is good. There's not really anything bad that I can say about this. I suppose the subtlety of Millie's performance when it comes to Elle at times is slightly annoying. You know, you want a little bit more from her, but then again, that's kind of the point of the character in so many ways. When it comes to the world that she introduces and the world that we discover as the series goes on, we also get opportunities to have references to, for example, the Alien movies and things, Outbreak and other things which play at the heart of this tension between, I suppose, government, community, and who's got your best interests at heart. So there's all sorts of great stuff going on in this show that I can't go into without spoiling it. So I'm not going to. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stop there. But I suppose finally, it really cannot be overstated just how much you grow to love and you grow to care about that core of in particular the four boys and Elle. And so yes, you know, the whole story does revolve around them, and I can totally see why people were saying it's like the Goonies. But in so many ways, Stranger Things is more than the Goonies, and it is, you could say in a lot of ways, it is derivative. It is drawing from a lot of different sources, which are very, in some ways, very clearly. I mean, in some places, literally, they're on the wall. Like I say, in the case of The Thing and this kind of thing. But more, it's the skill. It's more than just the sum of its parts. It's the skill with which this TV series has been woven together that makes it what it is. And so, you know, we tried to be disciplined. We tried just to watch a couple of episodes, you know, at a time, or maybe one episode at a time. By the time we got to episode, you know, 6, we just finished the whole series. We had to know what was going to happen, and so now we're almost certainly going to watch it again. But also, obviously, we're waiting with bated breath for the next season, which starts, I believe, in and around Halloween. And I think, actually, as far as I'm aware, it's actually set in Halloween. I've seen a teaser trailer for season 2. It's come up recently. And Justin's wearing a Ghostbusters outfit. How cool is that? So, yeah, it's good. And it is all of those things in some respects that people were saying. But I think it's more than that. It's cleverer than that. And I think the Duffer Brothers are really onto something when they created this. And this isn't really a spoiler, but I really like that at some point it's kind of Christmas in the series, and someone gets really excited about getting an Atari. Like, I felt the weight of it. It's exactly the same weight as my friend's Atari. It must be an Atari. I thought that was very cool as well. Anyway, guys, my voice is slowly disappearing. I'm going to leave it there. But as ever, until next time, do take care. Bye-bye.